Hi, welcome to Birthing at Home, a podcast. I'm Elsie, your host. I'm a homebirth mum of 2 little boys, I'm a mental health nurse, a homebirth advocate broadly, but also more specifically in the state of Victoria, and I'm an ex-student midwife. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people who are the traditional custodians of the land I'm recording on in Melbourne, Australia. I would also like to acknowledge that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have been birthing at home on country for tens of thousands of years prior to the British invasion and acknowledge that sovereignty has never been ceded. Episode 29 is shared by Rachel from New Zealand. Rachel is a mum to 4 and today shares her New Zealand birth centre births, her traumatic Australian home birth transfer birth, and her redemptive home birth back in New Zealand. Rachel was a pleasure to talk to and I learned a lot from her, including about some Maori traditions. We also talk about bleeding during pregnancy, a variation that would usually be viewed as high risk, at least in Australia. This is a great episode and I know you'll enjoy it. And of course, if you do enjoy it, please rate and review the podcast on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen. You can also send me a message and tell me how much you loved it. The feedback really helps the podcast. Enjoy. Welcome, Rachel, to Birthing at Home, a podcast.
Hi.
Thanks so much for joining me on Saturday morning, although you're in New Zealand right now, so you're like 2 hours ahead. Is that right?
Yeah, it's like 11:15 here.
Yeah, cool. And it's almost 9:15 here in Melbourne. Awesome. Do you want to start off by giving a little background about who you are, what, like a little bit about your family kind of thing?
Yeah, sure. I'm Rachel. I'm 33. I live in Hokitika, which is on the west coast of the South Island in New Zealand. And I live there with my partner and our 4 kids, Meadow, who's 7, Sky, who's 6, Reef, who's 4, and Sol, who's just turned 1.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
And what's your partner's name?
Dale.
Cool. I guess to begin, so what we're going to be chatting about today is briefly about the birth centre births of Meadow and Sky, and then more about Reef and Sol, who were, planned home births. But I guess to start off with, coming from New Zealand, have you always known about home birth or birthing at home?
Well, actually, when I got pregnant with my first baby, I was like, oh, I'll just take all the drugs and have a C-section because I'd gone from party girl mode to having a baby.
Yeah.
And one of my cousins was all about hypnobirthing and home birthing and stuff. And she was like, you go all this time pregnant, not like drinking or anything. Why would you want to stuff it up at the end?
Yeah.
And I did like an antenatal class that really kind of changed my mind about drugs and stuff in labour, and I was like, wow, I really don't want to do that. And then my friend who we would do the same time, she was having a home birth, and I was like, holy heck, you're crazy. But I just decided to go to the birth centre. After I'd done the antenatal class, I thought home birth would be cool, but it's my first time and I'm scared. So my mum had told me it's easy as you just squat down and spit them out.
Yeah.
She was like an aerobics instructor right up until she had me, so that might have been why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did your mum have any home births?
No, she didn't. She was always like, oh, nah, the mess. Like, I don't want to wreck your carpet or anything.
Not the carpet.
Yeah, but she had really fast births. Like, I reckon if she'd had more babies, she probably would have gone for home birth because her last one was only an hour. So
yeah, wow. I find that so interesting. So you kind of always knew about home birth, but just thought it's not for me. Like I'm not going to do that. Yeah,
or I kind of I thought not with my first baby. Like what if something goes wrong? Even though
you got your trial run first.
Yeah, well that's what I thought. And my first baby, where I was having her, there was no drugs or anything. There was gas and water. So I was like, if I can do it there this time, I can probably do it next time.
Yeah, wow. So then you decided to birth in the birth centre with Meadow and Sky. Is that like, do you know if birth centres are like common in New Zealand?
So they're actually kind of closing them down now, which is really sad.
No.
Yeah, because they are definitely more naturally minded, than a hospital.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the shortage of midwives in here, they're just slowly closing them down, which is really sad.
That's so sad. And so in New Zealand, what is the kind of setup of a birth centre? Like, is it still within the hospital, or is it like separate from a hospital, or?
It's different for each one's, but the one that I birthed at is my hometown is just a small little town, and it's just part of the hospital there.
Yeah. Okay. And
my mum was born there, and so was I, which was was cool.
That is very, very cool. Actually, I think I've had somebody on who like had the same, like used a midwife that like delivered them or something. Like that's wow.
Oh,
so
I
crazy.
actually had that with a well child nurse. She was there when I was born, and then I had her as like she came to see me with Sky when Sky wouldn't eat food.
Yeah. Wow, that is so special. Do you want to give like a bit of an overview about your pregnancies and birth experiences with Meadow and Sky then?
Yeah, so with Meadow, I kind of, with my cousin, she said that sort of changed my perspective. She said about hypnobirthing, and I was like, oh yeah, if I get round to it, but I just didn't really bother because I thought it was easy. My mum's like, no, you just do it.
Come out.
Yeah. And then so with her, I actually changed midwives with her. I forgot about that. So I had this midwife, and I don't know, nothing against like smokers and stuff, but she was like smoking and and really busy. Like I felt like she didn't have time for me. I'd go there and she'd be like getting her coffee and smoke ready and just get me to pee on the little stick thing. And I don't know, it was like my first baby, and I wanted to feel like seen, sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I changed to a midwife that my friend had recommended, and she was so lovely. Like when I went to her, I was like, oh, I've definitely made the right decision. She was really naturally minded.
Yeah.
So I changed to her, and then I went a few days overdue with Meadow, and she'd stopped moving. Well, I felt like she'd stopped moving, and my mum had said, oh, yeah, they do that before they come. And then I'd read all these posters everywhere, and I was like, oh, my gosh, I better get checked. So they put me on a CTG and saw that I was contracting. And she said, well, you're overdue. The obstetrician thinks you should be induced if you haven't had her by 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. And I'd done my antenatal class, so I was like, heck no, I don't want to be induced. So she said, oh, don't really listen to that. Go home and get acupuncture, because there's like a little lady that would come around and do acupuncture. She used to be a midwife.
Yeah.
So she came to my house at like 9 o'clock at night, did some acupuncture for me, and about 12:30, I went to the maternity home in what I thought was like ready to push labour, but I was only 3 centimetres, and they were like, well, you might as well stay here anyway. And when she said, I wish I didn't get checked, but when she said I was 3 centimetres, I was like, oh, I can't do this. And I asked them to get me an ambulance to go and have a C-section.
Wow.
And when the ambulance came, then they checked me again, and I was like ready to push. So I had her there. So I had her at 6 in the morning. So that was like 5.5 hour labour.
Yeah, wow. For first baby as well. We're in the context of like all of those other stresses as well. Wow.
Yeah, but the only thing was she was a nuchal hand presentation, so I actually ended up with a 3rd-degree tear.
Wow.
And being in a little town like that, they don't do that kind of thing. So then me and her were like in an ambulance.
Yeah.
They did say, oh, we'll get someone else to take your baby over, and I was like, hell no.
Don't take my baby.
Yeah, so they let me take her in the ambulance, and we went to Aotearoa, which is like an hour away. And they stitched me up there.
Yeah.
And then with Sky,
Sorry, just for the listeners and for myself as well. So a nuchal hand presentation, that's like, is that when the hand is like
on their
first
face.
or like on their face? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so it was like I don't know. When I had scans with her, and when I did, she'd always had like a hand around her face.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah. But it was the elbow that did the damage.
Oh no, damn elbow.
Yeah. So I got that all stitched, but then at like I think it was 4 months postpartum.
Yeah.
I found out I was pregnant again.
Yep.
I hadn't had a period or anything. I was fully breastfeeding. Like, that is a lie about
no.
Yeah. I rang
contraception.
I rang my midwife and said, like, oh, is there any way maybe the pregnancy hormone's just still floating around and this is wrong?
Yeah.
So then I thought, because I thought, well, you know, before I'd given birth, I thought, my second baby I'll give birth at home. But after that tear, I was like, I really want to be, there just in case that happens again.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, sex hurt, let alone thinking having a baby like only just a year later.
Yeah.
But I was really mindful to not eat as much sugar as I did with Meadow, because I put on a lot of weight with her, and I was eating like lots of sugary stuff. And my midwife had said sugar doesn't help your skin with stretching, like, and it causes bigger babies. So I did that, and then with Sky, she was only like an hour and 20-minute labour.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and I should have really just stayed home because I only had a tiny, tiny little first-degree tear with her.
Yeah.
And I was kind of in denial with her because I was like, this doesn't hurt enough. I'd read the hypnobirthing book that my cousin had said, like, hindsight's such a good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so I kind of just went with like that breathing, and I felt really good in my labour with her. So peaceful.
Yeah. And so how long did you actually spend in because in New Zealand you call them something different, is that right? It's not a birth centre, it's a
like a maternity home kind of thing.
A maternity home, that's what the term is. Yeah, okay. So how long did you spend in the maternity home with Sky?
With Sky I stayed the first night.
Yeah.
And then I actually had like a midwife there that was quite mean to me. I'd seen her after I had Meadow, and she said that I should only have C-sections from now on because of the tear and blah, blah, blah. And,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, and she happened to be there after I had Sky, and she was just really, looking back now, because I was so young and like could get pushed around easily, like I had said no to doing the heel prick test, and she ignored that and did it, and I was crying the whole time.
Oh my goodness. That's atrocious.
I know, but you know, it's old school, I guess. But but I said I would do it at home when she was a few days older, and she just ignored that and stuff. And so I went home early because I didn't want to be there. It was only me and her in there, and it felt really ugly.
Yeah. Yeah.
With Meadow, I stayed 4 nights because I wanted to really nail the breastfeeding.
Yeah. And so is it more because in Australia birth centres aren't definitely, I guess we're like the future of New Zealand in that sense, is that like we don't have like in Victoria where I live, there's no birth centres, and like I know that there's at least one in Queensland, but like they're few and far between, and usually connected to like really highly medicalized hospitals. So you're risking it kind of anyway by birthing in the birth center, because hospitals, you know, literally one door away. But you know, that postpartum in the maternity home, like what is that? What was that like for you? You know, obviously you could, with Meadow, you could get some breastfeeding support. Is it more just like a homely kind of vibe, or? Yeah,
it's really nice. So if you like, I don't know, I liked it because I was like, oh, I feel special. There's like people, they come and see you, people bring you food. You have your actual midwife who sees you through your whole pregnancy. She'll come in and visit you while you're there. But then you have like midwives that work on the ward as well. Yeah. Like seeing everyone. So for me, like with my first baby, I found it so helpful. Like if I was struggling with breastfeeding, I'd just ring the bell and someone would come. There's a lactation consultant that would come through and visit as well.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, it was really, I'm quite sad that it's not like that as much
that's
anymore.
really horrible. Yeah, that's very sad. Did you do anything in particular with the placentas of Meadow or Sky?
Yeah, I did. So I whakapapa to Māori, and like in our culture, we plant our placentas.
Yeah.
So we give it back to Papa Tuanuku, the Earth Mother, and when you plant your placenta, it forms like a spiritual connection between the Earth and your baby.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So
That's really beautiful. I actually saw. Have you seen the documentary / film Pacific Mother?
Oh, no, I haven't. That's the lady that's swimming in the water, is it?
Yeah. And they go and document like home birth and birth on all the like Pacifica Islands and whatnot. And that's how I learned about the placenta in Maori culture. That's very, very cool, very special.
Yeah.
And so you had Meadow and Sky in New Zealand, but then you went on an adventure to Australia.
Yes, to Western Australia. And having another baby so soon wasn't part of the plan.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, yeah, go here, make heaps of money, get married, have some more kids, you know. But then I think when Sky was about 16 months old, I got pregnant again.
Yep.
And I think I kind of got like lulled into this false thing of like all midwives care about you kind of thing. It's not just a job sort of thing, because I had that really nice midwife in New Zealand.
Yep.
And like I'd go to birth circles and stuff over there, and I'd be like, geez, like when people would talk about their horrible birth experiences, and I was like, well, that would never happen to me because it's easy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, I just didn't think it was like that. I guess I didn't realise how actually effed up the system is in Australia.
Yeah.
So then when I got pregnant, when I found, because, you know, midwives are free in New Zealand. You just get pregnant, you choose whatever midwife like aligns with you, and then it's all paid for. Yeah. And you can give birth, like they encourage giving birth at home. Yeah. But yeah, there I got pregnant, and then I was like, oh, okay. I don't want an obstetrician.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought, well, I'll just go through the community midwife program. Yeah. Because I'm low risk. Well, I thought I was low risk, but they didn't think I was, because I'd had a 3rd degree tear and a bit of a hemorrhage after I had Sky.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like the risk level. Yeah, I can't speak for anywhere else but Australia, but the risk boxes are crazy. Even in Victoria, where I live, they're starting some publicly funded home birth programs through some of the hospitals here, which is amazing because, you know, for so many women, it will become more accessible because it will be free, but the criteria to get in is so strict, and then at 36 weeks or something they'll bring you in again to meet with the obstetrician and make sure that you still fit all of the, you know, tick boxes and whatever, and if you don't, then you can be kicked out of the entire program. It's absolute madness. So yeah, Australia is not, it's like
Russian roulette. I honestly I think it's like a false sense of you're going to get your home birth. And I feel like you're doing all these little, I don't know, like you're a little pony doing all these little tricks to be like, please give me it.
Yeah, jump through hoops. Yeah, absolutely. So what did you do for work?
Oh, so over there, I'm usually a dairy farmer in New Zealand, but over there I was barbering.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And was there any particular reason why Western Australia, or just?
So my partner was playing rugby over there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so we were there. But then, the laws had changed, so my kids didn't have daycare anymore, and I had this massive bleed with Reef, and so I stopped working quite early with him. Yeah. Yeah, I thought I was going to lose him. It was quite an intense hemorrhage.
Yeah, wow. So how many weeks do you remember were you when you kind of engaged with the community, like the midwives?
So that happened, the bleed was 11 weeks, and then I was like, I'll just wait in case he doesn't stay, because it was massive. And then I got them, I think I applied at like 18 weeks or something, and I heard from them at like early 20 weeks, something around that time.
Wow. Yeah. And so, you know, at this point with Reef, was the hope to have a home birth, or was it just simply to have the midwifery continuity of care?
At first it was like I'll just give birth at a birth home sort of thing. But then when I looked how far away I was from that, it was 45 minutes, and I was like, oh geez, like last time my birth was only an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And my friend, she'd been like, free birth, and I was like, free birth, what the hell is that? And then, and then I was like, actually home birth sounds pretty good. Like, it was real easy last time, and it would be really nice having my kids there. And then I guess like moving to Australia was a real kind of awakening for me, seeing how, no offense to you guys, but really controlling over here. Like,
absolutely.
Like, no kindy for you, no midwife. Like, So it was kind of like his pregnancy was kind of journey for me, but it was cool. And
so you got like allocated like a primary kind of midwife that, you know, was your main midwife?
Yes, I did. So she hadn't had any kids herself, but at first I was like, oh, I don't know about that. But the more I talked to her, I was like, oh no, she is actually like really, like she was with the vitamin K, she didn't really say nothing against her, but she was like, you know, you kind of have to wonder why do we need to give it to them? Why are they born like that? She was like, just something to think about, which made me be like, oh, I like you.
Yeah. Having a bit of questioning of the system, because so many people, at least in Australia, so many people just blindly follow what, you know, these magical health professionals that are the all-knowing say, you know, like they don't question anything. They just,
and you can't blame them for that either, though.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I guess they just trust that person knows what they're doing because they've studied.
Yeah, absolutely. And just going back a little bit, so the bleed that you had with Reef, obviously that was quite significant. Like, had you ever had any like antenatal bleeding like that before?
So I've bled with, I've been pregnant 6 times. I've bled with 4 of them, but his was like, I was just running the bath for the kids, and then I just got this felt like a labor pain in my cervix, and then just this blood was like gushing out, and it didn't stop. Like, we went to hospital, and I had my hunting bush jacket on, and the blood had gone through the back of that and into the car. Wow. Yeah.
That must have been really scary. What did they say anything at hospital, or?
They were like, well, we're not going to fire up the scan machine for one woman. So they were like, yeah, just go home and fast for tonight, and if there's no heartbeat, we can give you a DNC tomorrow. And I was like, oh, cool, thanks. So I didn't sleep very well that night. Yeah, it was really disconnected kind of feeling. Like, I just felt so crap. And I only had my partner there. Like, all my family's back in New Zealand, so it was pretty crappy.
Yeah. And so then the bleeding obviously stopped?
Well, I went back the next day and they did a scan, and he was fine, but there was this massive hematoma underneath him, and the obstetrician said that he thinks an artery had burst in there. Oh. And that would explain why it was like gushing out, almost like pulsing. Huh. Yeah. Wow. But yeah, they said because like every baby I've had, the placenta's been anterior up the top. And he said, if it had been down the bottom, I probably would have lost the baby because the blood would have peeled him off. But I don't know how true that is, but I was like, oh, I'm glad it's up the top.
Yeah. Wow. And so the rest of your pregnancy with Reef, what was that like?
It was pretty good. I bled until about 17 weeks. Yeah. And so that kind of made me feel a little bit disconnected because I kept being like, well, not going to get attached just in case something goes wrong.
Wow. And so from, that big gushing kind of start, was it more like spotting or trickle or how?
Yeah, then it would just sort of went to like spotting after that. Yeah, but the rest of my pregnancy was really good. Like it was probably the craziest one I've had. Had no morning sickness. I was like the slimmest I've been, so it wasn't that hard on my body. I'd taken some homeopathic remedy at the start when I got a little bit of the SPD, and that got rid of it. And it was just really crazy.
Yeah, cool. And so when was it that you thought, okay, well, I might try to have Reef at home?
So that was, when I had got the midwife around 20-something weeks, I thought I'd go for the community midwife thing because the other one was through the maternity home. Yeah. But I was like, oh, nah, I'll try to do a home birth. Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess maybe going back a little bit, but was there any extra like education kind of stuff? Obviously, you read the the hypnobirthing book and stuff with Sky, but like with Reef, was there anything extra that you did to sort of prepare yourself for the birth and labour and whatnot?
Nah, because I just sort of thought I'd know what to do. I was a little bit surprised, like back home, because I did used to go to the home birth meetups there sometimes. Yeah, just because it's sort of like-minded people and that. Yeah, but they would have like a pool that people just borrow and stuff. Like it was real kind of community buzz. Whereas here it was like everything's real. Everything's real pricey. Like expensive. I couldn't believe it. I was like, geez, this is like a mini wedding.
Yeah, exactly. So in the lead up to the labour with Reef, did you have like any signs of labour? Like, you said when you started to bleed with Reef, initially you had like that kind of contraction sensation. Did those kind of sensations like continue in your pregnancy, or like did you have Braxton Hicks or?
No, maybe a little bit of Braxton Hicks probably because I've had that every time, but nothing really like standoutish. I just went to the toilet. So I had Meadow at 40 weeks and 4 days, Sky at 40 weeks and 2 days, and then Reef I was 40 weeks and 1 day, and I went to the toilet. My mum had come over to stay so she could be
amazing.
There. Yeah, and I went to the toilet, and then I stood up and I was like, oh, yuck, I'm still peeing. Yeah. So sat down, and then it was like whoosh, 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 and I was like, okay, maybe that isn't Lee's. Yeah. And I was like to Mum, because my waters had broken during already in labour with my girls. Yeah. Just before pushing sort of thing. So I had them popped just before pushing with them. Yeah. So I'd never felt this before. And and I said to my mum, I think my waters might have broken. And and they rang the midwife and told her. I was like, oh, yay, I might be having a baby soon. But, I said, my waters are broken, but there's no contractions or anything. Yeah. And she's like, oh, that's cool. And then said, but, if you haven't had the baby because I had the backup midwife. My normal one was away on days off. Okay. Yeah, and she said, if you haven't had the baby by 4:30 a.m. or something, it was 10:30 when my waters.
I think you just cut out. So it was 10:30 when your waters broke?
Yeah, 10:30 in the morning, and then for some weird rule, I don't know what it was, but it was you have to come in at 4:30 and be induced if you haven't had him by then, which I thought was strange, but...
That's so, I mean, I with my second pregnancy last year, or birth last year, my waters broke, and fortunately I was aware that then you would be put kind of on this imaginary clock on when they would have to recommend that, X, Y, Z, because your waters have ruptured before labour has started. But that's so frustrating. It doesn't sound like you were kind of given a choice, because you can absolutely decline all of that. That's very misleading for them to just say, oh, at this particular time you'll have to be induced. That's one side of the coin, really.
Yeah, the weird thing is too is that I because, you know, being kicked out of kindy and all that kind of thing, I sort of had like a little online crew of friends that were like really F the system sort of thing.
Yeah.
And like I knew all of that, but it was really weird but I guess being in labour, I didn't really, I don't know, you know, it sort of changes your,
yeah,
conditioned, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that happened and I just thought, oh shit, I don't want to be induced.
Yeah.
I don't want to be put on antibiotics either because I didn't even take them.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I just went about my day. I walked down and because my partner's mum, auntie, and cousin had all turned up on my due date.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So they went to stay at my friend's house because my partner had them turn up and thought he would leave it a surprise for me.
Oh.
So yeah, we had kind of had like a little bit of an argument.
Yeah.
The day before, and I'd actually wanted to move back to New Zealand and he didn't, and we had this massive argument and we sort of like kind of broke up the day before. So when my waters broke, I wasn't like I wasn't in my usual like, yeah, I'm going to give birth. I was like, fuck, not right now.
Yeah.
Not in the right frame of mind.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I wasn't really like myself, I guess. I wasn't ready to like go through something massive like that.
Yeah.
But I thought, well, I'll walk down and I'll go see his family and stuff. So like to try and get the labour moving as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I walked down there and nothing happened. And then at about maybe like 4:45, and my contractions just started like, really, they were like 40 seconds, then 50, a minute, and they were only like a few minutes apart.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like fire up the pool. So yeah, he was blowing up the pool and Mum was there and I rang the midwife and was like, yeah, it's on. Yeah. And she was on her way. She was 45 minutes from me.
Yeah.
And I had actually, when I was in labour, I went and met this lady. I'd posted in this group that I was in asking if people had intentionally free birth, because the more I'd learned about this community midwife program, I was like, geez, like they made me meet with them at 30 weeks to see if I was low risk enough because of my tear and the bleed I had with Sky.
Yeah, yeah.
And that made me feel really like, ugh. And they were also trying to say like, oh, as soon as you've had the baby, you should be getting on some sort of contraception and all that. And I was like, that's my decision.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. It's my body and they're my babies. And if oh my gosh.
Yeah, like just coming from New Zealand, like I just thought, ugh, yeah, this just reminds me of being like a teenager trying to be controlled.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I'd met this lady. She actually has a podcast now, the Renegade Mama. And,
I know that podcast.
Yeah, and she'd told me all about free birth and stuff, and I was like, man, I was like, whoa, this is so cool. But I was also like, oh, far out, I was too scared.
Yeah.
I guess I just wasn't, at that place yet, even though it was my third baby.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it really kind of opened my mind up a bit though. And talking to her was really cool.
Yeah.
And so then I went into labour, those contractions started, and then I just felt like I needed to go to the toilet, and I went and had a look, and there was all this bright, fresh red blood.
Okay.
And like a lot of it, and I was like, oh, I haven't had that before. And so I rang the midwife back and I was like, I've got all this, because my mum was going, that's normal, that happens just before they come, it's your cervix.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, I don't know, because like, you know, anything you see is like, oh, bright red blood is not good. So I rang the midwife and she was like, oh no, that's it, you're out of a home birth. And I was like, what? And I said, oh, can't you just come here and check him with the Doppler?
Yeah. Or
something, like just check his heartbeat. And she's like, no, that's it, you've got to go to hospital now. Wow. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I was so gutted. And then I was just instantly thinking like about the free birth stuff and all of that. And I was like, fuck, I shouldn't have called the midwife. But I had this fear as well of like, well, now she knows I'm in labour. If I don't go, what if she like calls you know, because like reading stuff online, I was scared of, what are they called over there?
Child
Dots or whatever?
protection. Like, like
that kind of buzz. And I was like, fuck. Yeah. So I kind of felt like I shot myself in the foot.
But that's crazy because, like, I don't know what the actual, like, advice or guidelines, but in my head, I'm like, but we already know there's, like, a hematoma, like, at the bottom. So, like, presumably that's what the blood is. It's nothing to do with
by
baby,
then,
right?
the hematoma had stopped. So, like, as the baby grows, it kind of pushes the hematoma out. So they were thinking, like, placental abruption.
Okay.
So, and I also had that fear too, like after she had said, you know, it could be that. Then I was thinking, shit, what if I've got, you know, if that's come off, I've got a dead baby.
Yeah.
And so, obviously, after all that, my contractions had slowed right down.
Yeah.
And, like, we had to, because I had no family there, I had to get, like, my partner's cousin's ex, who I was friends with, but I'm, like, a real clingy mum. Like, I homeschool my kids, so they're always with me. So I trust her 100%, but I just wasn't prepared. Like, I was thinking I'm having my baby at home in the lounge with my kids there, not leaving them with a friend and going to hospital. So that really threw me. Like, my girls were only 3 and 2 then, and so then, I was like, oh, my God, leaving my babies behind, bleeding, and, on the way to hospital.
Yeah.
Wasn't really.
No,
it's just like
so
your
scary.
plan just gone to nothing. It was really shit.
Yeah, it's like almost the complete opposite to what you had hoped for. You know, this warm, cozy, surrounded by family, at home, you know, birth, and really now I imagine you've just got so much adrenaline going through your body, in the back of your mind. You're like worried about your kids, worried about so many things, like, wow.
And still angry at my partner too. And still angry.
That's so true.
Because I was thinking, like, you know, if we'd just gone back to New Zealand, like I said, I'd be sweet right now. And but I don't know. So then we got to hospital, and then they were just like, all these people, all these men, which I thought was weird. Like in Taupo, when I had my girls, it's all women around you. And like in my notes, there's the thing of like having a history of sexual assault. So I kind of wasn't really comfortable with men around me anyway. But then I had these, they were like trying to put a line thingy in my hand to induce me, and I was like, what? I don't need to be induced, I'm in labor. And I was this little, I don't know if he was like a male midwife or a male nurse or something, but I was like, I'm in labor, I don't need that. And he's like, trust me, honey, you're not in labor. I was like, oh my God, like,
oh my gosh,
have you ever had a baby?
Oh, that's so gross. Oh my gosh, what the hell? And so did they stop doing it, or they
so we ended up agreeing, because I was like, I'm not having that shit in my body. So he was like, I'll just put this in here just in case you need something later on. And I was like, whatever. So I just had this little thing in my hand, but I didn't actually have anything in it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then they got me up to a ward to give birth, and they're like, you're bleeding, you can't go in the pool. You've got to be monitored the whole time, so you need to be like on the bed sort of thing. And then they were like, oh, maybe you could go in the shower. We'll just see if we've got this other monitor that you can go in there with. And then they're like, oh, no, we can't. Sorry, that monitor's not working. So I was like, fuck.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and they had like this, the only kind of Swiss ball they had was like a real, I'm 5'11", so it was like this little flat ball, which I tried to sit on that, and I was like, holy shit, no. So it was horrible. That all the things that would usually get me through labour, I couldn't have pretty much. And I just gone into this full, I guess, like good girl mode, just doing what I was told. And so
at that time, did you have like anybody that, like, did you have any, like, was your mum there, or like? Yeah,
so my mum and partner were there. But I guess as the pain like ramped up, I was just like, you motherfucker, at my partner. Which is terrible, but I was just like, I needed someone to put the anger onto, I guess, which is so bad. I feel terrible about that still, but he was just like, ooh. And then, pretty much I just felt like like working on a farm, I've seen like heifers go absolutely mental until they just like give up at fighting. And that's pretty much how I felt in there. Like I just went psycho. I lost my mind in the end. I was just like, I hated it so much. And this obstetrician kept coming in. Oh, sorry, anaesthetist, I think, was coming in saying like, oh, I could hear this lady above us just screaming. And he said, I'm going to deliver twins. Like, if you want an epidural, I'll come in and give you one. Otherwise, you're going to have to wait hours, and you don't want to end up like that lady, like the screaming lady. And I was like, in the end, I just felt
God.
Yeah, I was like, fuck it, I'll just do what they want and just go to sleep, and hopefully this will all be over, because it was like the worst feeling ever. Like I just, so I just got I felt like if I don't get it, I'm going to be absolutely unhinged and like mental by the time my baby is in my arms. Like I just felt like I was losing, like I'd never had a labor pain like that either. It was all on one side and in my back. And usually, like, you know, I'd had my other girls sweet as. So I was like, what the fuck is this? So, I had the epidural, and I just went to sleep. They wouldn't turn the aircon off, so I was freezing the whole time. I had like 5 blankets on me. Yeah. And, they were like, we can't turn it off for you because that's got to turn off a few rooms if we turn yours off, so no. So, I went to sleep, and then I just woke up and I could hear these midwives talking about me, and I was like, oh, she didn't even try, and all of that. And I was like, oh, I'm awake, I can hear you talking about me. And they were like, oh, I'm stopped. And then I said, I feel kind of weird, like I could feel like a heaviness, I guess. And they said, oh, yeah, sweet, you're ready to push. Just the midwife that had been on was like, I've finished my shift, this is another midwife now.
Oh my God.
Yeah, she's like, good luck. And then and then I was like, wait, let me wake up my mum and my partner. So I woke them up, and then this lady she just started putting her hands up inside me, like pulling everything apart. And I've never, ever had that before.
Wow.
It was really, I just felt so like broken and violated. Yeah. And like from what was written in my notes, I would have thought that they wouldn't do that, but yeah. And so I just pushed him out, and when he came out, he was like asynclitic posterior, so he was like facing my leg but kind of facing up towards me as well, and his head was all molded out in this little peanut shape. And he came out, and when he was on me, he came out with a bag on his head, and I was like, wow, that's the only cool thing out of this whole shitty situation. And then the midwife just ripped it off. I was like,
oh my God, what the heck?
Oh. So then I got him on my chest, and I wasn't even crying like I was happy he was there. I was like crying like, holy fuck, we survived.
Like relieved.
Yeah, it was so messed up. So after that, I was like, fuck Australia.
Fuck this. I'm going back to New Zealand. You can come with me or not, but I'm going.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I said to my partner, and he he was pretty traumatized from that whole experience as well, because I was horrible to him that whole time as well. And so I packed down the whole house and everything. Like, definitely didn't do the 40 days thing after. And I was like off getting a birth certificate and stuff when he was a couple of days old, and then packed down the whole house. My partner wasn't coming home. He was like, I'm not ready to go home, I want to stay in Australia. So he moved down the road, and we flew to Sydney when he was a week old and got a citizenship and a passport, and flew home to New Zealand.
Wow, Rachel.
He was like a week old.
Oh my goodness. And so you Reef, Sky and Meadow all went back to New Zealand.
Yeah, and I think I was just like absolutely traumatized when I think 100%. About it.
Yeah. Yeah. That I don't even have like the words, like I was talking to a colleague a few weeks ago about obviously I have the podcast and whatever, and I'm a nurse, so like I work with nurses, and one of the nurses is also a paramedic. And I was talking about, obstetric violence and sexual assault in obstetrics, and he just was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, it happens. It 100% happens. And I just feel so sad that like so much of that is under this, you know, I call it like a guise, like, you know, pretend like of safety. Like it would be like, oh, to save the baby, or to save Rachel, or if we hadn't have done this X, Y, Z. But like that's atrocious. I'm so sorry that you had that experience. That's horrible. It sounds horrible.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because like, you know, birth and sex isn't the same thing, but I guess you're in a vulnerable thing for both of those. And just that feeling of being on the bed and that lady doing that stuff to me just brought back things of just feeling like so helpless.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I'm very like excited to hear then the birth of Sol. So you had Sol at home in New Zealand and you had a wild pregnancy for Sol, yeah?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
So Dale came back. Yeah. COVID and everything happened. Like so that sucked. He was stuck there. He came back the week that Reef was turning 1, so we'd been apart for nearly a whole year. Yeah. And then we ended up moving towns and stuff together and started conscious conception. So I, like, for another baby, I just wanted everything to be really, like, healing and perfect this time. So we did that. We did, like, all the little teas and meditating and stuff together. Like, wow. And he's like a man's man, you know, plays rugby and hunting and stuff. So he's like probably thinking, like, tell people this. Yeah, but so we did all of that, and I got pregnant in the January, but we actually lost that baby. Okay. At 8 weeks, but I had planned for this. Like I was like, there's no way I'm having anything to do with the system again after that. So so that baby, I hadn't had any scans or anything, but once I started bleeding, I just had a feeling like, oh, this isn't good. Like it wasn't how I bled with my other babies, and I did go and have a scan, and there was no heartbeat, and they were saying, oh, maybe it's earlier than what you think, but because I'd tracked everything, I was like, no. Yeah. So, I just had that baby at home, and then I had like 1 cycle and then got pregnant with Sol. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, wow. And so at this point, you know, I guess this 7 or so year journey with having kids, were you like kind of connected to sort of home birth, free birth community in New Zealand, or?
So after Reef, I'd done like I'd talked to like a healing birth practitioner. I'd started getting like so over here ACC pays for your sensitive claims, which is like sexual assault. Yeah. They pay for all of that because that birth had sort of brought all of that up as well. I'd done lots of healing, and I'd started doing birth photography. Oh, cool. And I was studying to be a doula, and did a couple of births and stuff. But so, and I'd kind of met like a few free birthing people and stuff over here. Yeah. And so what was your pregnancy like then with Sol? Did you also bleed with Sol? No. So Meadow and Sol are the only ones I didn't bleed with, and they're my biggest babies.
Yeah. That's so funny. Like, you know, finding trust in your body, was that something that came easily, or?
That's what I thought I would struggle with, like having that loss before. I thought like, oh, I wonder if I do get pregnant again, how am I going to go like with trusting that the baby's okay? But it was really weird. I just had this feeling of like, no, whatever's meant to be, I fully trust that this baby's fine. Like,
yeah, wow. So what was your like pregnancy experience with Sol like then? Did you like engage, like was it a completely wild pregnancy, or did you choose to like
so it was things? I guess it was sort of mostly wild. Around 20 weeks I was like, holy shit, am I having twins? Because I was huge. But I ended up So we sold our house and moved when I was about 12 weeks pregnant with him, and we moved. So we were in the North Island before, and we moved to the South Island.
Okay.
Because we wanted to live more like sort of off the land and just live sort of more free.
Yeah.
Somewhere that was safer for our kids.
Yeah.
And there's like a community here. It's like a religious community kind of. It's been in the news for not very good things, but the midwives are quite naturally minded.
Yeah.
They actually see people along the coast here.
Yeah.
And I thought I would meet with one to find out about how I'd get a birth certificate and stuff, because I know that a few people were kind of struggling free birthing and getting a birth certificate.
Yeah.
So, I met with one lady who was a midwife there, and she was really nice. And she's like, oh, yeah, if you need me, just give me a call. Like, there was no pressure to be under her or anything like that, which was really cool.
Yeah.
So, I just met her. She didn't check me or anything. Like, I told her what had happened with Reef and how I don't want anyone to ever touch me again and all that kind of thing. Yeah. She was really respectful of that. I just met her that one time, didn't see her again. I had midi, which is like traditional Māori massage.
Oh, cool.
And they like communicate with your ancestors and stuff and communicate with your baby, and they told me that it was a boy.
Yeah.
I felt like it was a boy though as well.
Yeah.
And that must have been like 30-something weeks, and then I kept thinking it was a boy, but I'd be like, shit, what if there's another one in there?
Yeah.
Just because I was so massive. I couldn't believe how big I was.
Yeah, wow.
And then at like 34 weeks, I kept getting these pains like I was in labour, and I thought, what the heck? And I ended up calling that midwife and said to her, what do you reckon I should do? Because it's really remote here. So if you did go into labour early, you'd have to be flown over to the other side of the island, which is like 3 hours away. Yeah. Because they don't have the facilities to like look after an early baby.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, well, you know, all your other babies have come later on. It's probably would be worth like just having a look and see what's going on. Yeah. And so I went up to the maternity home here, and not the maternity home, it's like a hospital thing. Yeah. And she came and put the CTG on me, but she's like, oh, this is picking up 2 heartbeats, I think. Oh. And then I was like, fuck, I'm not prepared for twins, because by then I was thinking, oh, yeah, it's just one big baby.
Yeah.
And my partner was like, oh, fuck. And then they're like, we'll just get this obstetrician to come and have a look. And he came and he was like, so you haven't done any tests? You haven't done any scans? He's like, do you reckon maybe we should just do a quick scan just to check that there's not 2 babies? Because he said if there's 2 and you're early, you know, you probably are going to need to go over to Christchurch. Yeah. And so he was like kind of freaking me out saying all this stuff, and the midwife was like, just stop, like calm down, we don't even know what's going on yet. Yeah. And so I did do a quick scan over him, because I thought, you know, I might as well just put it to rest and know what's going on. Yeah. We did that, and it looked like just one baby. Then I just went home, and I think I must have just been really dehydrated or something. I don't know. Yeah, maybe because I was just so big. I don't know. Yeah, but it went away. Like I just rested, and that went away. And I actually felt quite disappointed in myself that I'd gone. And I know that that's real stupid, but I was just like, damn, I didn't trust myself. I went in there, but then I also think, well, you know, if I hadn't gone, then I might have stressed myself out too, wondering if I was in labour. So
and also, you know, there's uncertainty about twins, and I think that would also, you know, have played on your mind, like, oh, like what if there is twins, and like, you know.
No, it didn't help. I actually saw like a reel of a lady who had a scan and then still had twins after that. So it was kind of like, well, you never know.
Oh my gosh, anything's possible. And so that kind of, you know, how many weeks were you when you had Sol?
So then I was 40 weeks and 4 days with him. Yeah. So it was like So where we live is a rainforest, and it rains heaps here. Yeah. But that summer was the hottest summer ever. And after Reef, I'd been like, I'm never having a baby in January again. But I was due like 2 days after Reef's birthday.
Wow.
So, but also a freaky thing too, because I was like, this is almost like a second chance of like we get to rewrite the story.
Yeah.
Like Reef gets to see what it could be like.
Yeah.
So I kept having, so at 39 weeks, I kept having like these, feel like it was starting and then it would all kind of taper off. My kids are like hot and scrapping each other.
Yeah.
So I feel like every time it felt like it was going to start, something could happen and then it would kind of get scared off.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so my partner was doing a lot of walking with the kids.
Yeah.
Trying to get them out of the house because they'd just, have a big brawl on my bed or...
Yeah.
Yeah, so that kept happening, and then I had this thing, I guess because of a few of the births I'd been to the year before, like doing the photography and doula stuff and that, there'd been like a few things that had happened with babies getting their shoulders kind of stuck.
Okay.
And that had kind of stayed in my mind a lot. Like I kept thinking, it was really weird. Like from when I'd first got pregnant with him, I kept thinking about shoulder dystocia. That's the thing that was scaring me.
Yeah.
And I'd read about it, like watched videos and stuff on what to do, but I just couldn't get it out of my mind. It was really weird.
Yeah.
And then I guess that was sort of playing on my mind that week leading up to having him, because he did feel bigger than my other babies. And that midwife had told me, like when I'd met her and stuff, she'd said, if he did get stuck, there's a few little moves you can do. And she said, if you bleed out, just like grab this bit on your toe and squeeze it with your nail as hard as you can.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She's like, just chuck a bit of the cord in your cheek until you can get to an ambulance. And so she was really naturally minded like that. And after that thing had happened with the scan at the hospital, she actually dropped me off like a loaf of bread, some nettle to make tea. Yeah. Which I was like, wow, that's really nice. Like she was just old school kind of traditional midwife.
Yeah. I think that's very cool that, you approached her because in Australia, I feel, I'm sure not all private midwives are like this, but it's very much like I see on free birth posts, that, something comes up like they want a scan or something, but more like in terms of midwifery care, and they want, just an antenatal appointment with a midwife, and the midwives will not see them if they won't. Like they want the whole thing, the antenatal, the birth, the postpartum. You can't just easily connect with a midwife just for one or two things. So I think that's so amazing that this midwife was just happy to be a part of your journey in whatever way you wanted. That's really, really nice.
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure if that's how most people do it, but I think because they were lay midwives and then they trained to be midwives, so I think she's quite maybe more traditionally minded than the normal midwife here, because I don't know that another midwife would have been like that for me. Definitely not dropping off a loaf of bread while they're in the area sort of thing.
Yeah, that's very nice though.
Yeah, it was all handmade.
Yeah, wow. Wow.
Yeah. So then what happened? Oh, yeah, so I keep having these stop-starting things. I was like, my God, this baby's never going to come.
Yeah.
So I woke up. Oh, so we'd kept, blowing up the pool, filling it up, tipping it out, taking it down that whole week.
Yeah.
And then we'd filled it up the day before because it felt like it had started. Yeah. We'd taken some of it out, so we were like, if it happens, we just need to chuck in a bit of warm water. Yeah. Then I woke up in the morning. It was 2 in the morning, and I went to the toilet and felt like a surge coming on, and I thought, not this shit again.
Yeah.
And so then I went and got a drink. I kind of felt sick when I woke up. When you've been falling asleep and you're kind of hot and you feel sick?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had that feeling, and I was like, ooh. And then, went and had a glass of water, and then I felt another one coming on, and I was like, oh, this actually feels a bit more real than the other times.
Yeah, okay.
And then I like timed them a little bit, and I was like, oh, yep, these are actually kind of staying together.
Yeah.
So I went to wake up Dale, and I was like, Dale, wait, do the poll and all that. And he's like, really? I was like, no, I actually think it's for real this time.
Yeah.
And so then he was like putting the hot water in and that, and my mum lived in a little cabin out the back of us.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so I rang her and I was like, I think I might be in labour. And then she was like, okay, and came in, and then I was just like, yeah, the pool got warmed up. And then my daughter always says this to me, because this must have been when she just woke up, but I was like, I don't care if I'm not in labour enough, I've got to hop in, because they were getting like quite intense by then.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I hopped in the pool, but I kept going between like this needing to go to the toilet and then hop back in the pool. So I'd like jump out, go wheeze, and then have a contraction there, and then I hopped out and I had like, I wasn't even weeing, I just kept feeling like I needed to.
Yeah, okay.
I hopped on the toilet again, and then, oh my gosh, I had like this massive one, and I still always think like, shit, I wonder if that neighbour heard me. But it was like a real like, because with Sky, I had just done like, I sounded like a cow having a baby.
Yeah.
And that had been real helpful for me, but I thought with Soul it would help, but I was actually not really working. Like, I was doing these really loud noises, and pretty much all I did was like wake up all the kids, and they were all like looking at me like, what the hell? And and I was just like, Mom. And then I thought like, fuck this, it's not even doing anything. And I thought, that's right, I'll just remember to breathe. So I had my comb in my hand, and I was just like breathing in and going like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then breathing out, counting to 7.
Wow. Yeah.
And as soon as I did that, like I hopped in the pool, and as soon as I did that, I was like, oh, it was just so much calmer. It didn't hurt anymore. And I was like, fuck, why didn't I do that the whole time?
Yeah.
But I was kind of like sitting back on my butt, and I keep getting like this real like pressure into my tailbone.
Yeah.
And then I thought, I was like, oh, I'll try. Because the night before I'd gone into labour, I had sort of just sat there and kind of thought about everything. And I thought, all right, like, you're either going to come tomorrow or not. But I thought, if I don't feel good, or if I feel like it, I'll just call the midwife.
Yeah.
And it's all good. Like, it doesn't, I guess because I had this whole thing of like, I have to have a free birth in my mind.
Yeah.
But I guess doing that maybe was like the last little bit that had to go for me to go into labour. I don't know. Yeah. But I'd sort of said that to myself, and so then I was like, I'm going to call the midwife when I was in labour, and I called her, and she didn't answer, and then I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm free birthing then.
Yeah.
And then she rang me back and was like, oh, sorry, I was asleep, I'll come now. And I was like, all right then. So they were on their way.
Yeah.
And and I was just sort of like laying on my back, and then when they turned up, I went onto my knees, and they were just like slowly, I didn't even really notice them, they were just like quiet in the background.
Yeah.
And my mum was taking photos the whole time, because she had my photography camera, and I see that they were like at the table with my kids where they were drawing and stuff. So
wow. Yeah. So there was two midwives that came.
Yeah, so there is always 2 in New Zealand. I don't know what it's like over in Aussie. But yeah, and so they were there, and then I moved on to my knees, and pretty much as soon as because when I'd been sitting on my butt, I'd felt like this pop, and I thought, was that my waters?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, because I'd only had that one time with Reef, and that was different.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just moved onto my knees, and man, as soon as I did that, I could just feel him coming down.
Wow.
Yeah, and I just was like breathing him out, and then I was thinking, shit, is this like time to have him? Because even when I was on my back, I kind of felt my body sort of doing little pushes, and I thought, no way, like it's way too soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, then when I was on my knees, I just started pushing, and I felt his head kind of coming out, and but it was like he couldn't move, if that makes sense. Like, it was trying to turn his head, but he couldn't, sort of thing.
Okay,
Like, he couldn't. Yeah, and then the midwife was just watching, and then she said, she said, you could lift your knee up if you want. It might give him some more room, because I was like on my knees.
Yeah.
And once I did that, then he just sort of flew out.
Wow.
And like floated out in front of me, and then I picked him up, and
Wow.
and then I was just like laughing and crying, and and my kids were all there, and
wow.
like the best thing was, like, when I was crowning and then they were like watching his head coming out and stuff, I could hear them like giggling and whispering, and it was so cute.
Yeah, and I guess that probably gave you, a little boost of oxytocin as well, like, like such. Yeah, and I guess
Dale.
You go.
Having Dale there, like, I had Dale there, like, holding my hand and everything, and just, like, after what had happened with Reef, it was just felt so good, like, having my partner there and, like, just getting to be like, this is what I wanted for our other son.
Yeah. Wow, that's so beautiful. And so did you tear at all with Sol?
Yeah, so so I sat in the pool and waited for the placenta for ages, but it wouldn't come. Yeah. Like, I guess because it was just pulsing the whole time. So I took some like tincture stuff, and then then I hopped out and had the placenta on. I had like a little mattress in the lounge.
Yeah, okay,
and then the midwife was like, "Oh, you've got a bit of a tear." She said, "It just looks like a little one."
Yeah.
And she's like, "I can stitch it if you want." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, whatever." Like, holding my baby, didn't really care, because I just thought it was a little one. Yeah. But it turned out it was actually quite bad. Like, a few days after, I got my partner to take a photo for me, and I was like, holy shit. It was like a 3rd degree, but it had been stitched not very well.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but I guess I went up to the hospital and stuff, because it did actually give me quite a bit of grief. Yeah. For quite a few weeks after, and they were all just like, "Oh, there's nothing you can do, and just have to let it heal and then get it fixed up later on." And I did go and have one surgery. Yeah. But it still didn't help. Like, I was finding I couldn't hold in wind very well.
Yeah. Okay.
So I went over to Christchurch, which was the other side of the island, to a specialist there, and it was like, I think it's like a 3rd degree tear, but when I'd had him, it actually snapped in an internal anal sphincter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so like, I can have that repaired, but I'm not sure if I've finished my family yet, so I think I've found, though, I was looking at doing surgery, but I'm unsure doing that yet, but I've been doing steaming and just lots of pelvic floor stuff's really helped with the tear. It's helped kind of like close things, and
wow. Well, that's really interesting. So was it then a 4th degree tear, because it went into the what did you say that it snapped? The anal?
Yeah, so you've got 2 sphincters. Yeah. One's like the external one, and then you've got the internal muscle. Yeah. But it didn't actually tear right through to there. Like, it was just a tear, like a 3rd degree tear. Yeah. But I think because of his size, like, the actual muscle snapped as he was coming out.
Is that maybe like the pop that you heard?
No, that was my waters popping.
That was just your waters popping.
I always wonder, like, that pain I was getting in my tailbone, like, maybe that was the muscle tearing then, because he was like 10 pound 6. Wow. And and all my other babies have been like 8 and 7 pound. Yeah.
Big bubba. Yeah. I both my babies have been 10 pound as well, so that's funny. Yeah, wow. I actually did have somebody on the podcast. Their episode isn't released yet, but they had a free birth too, and their bottom of like their, like, oh my God, I'm so terrible with anatomy, but their tailbone, like the very, very tip, like broke when baby was coming down. And she also, I'm pretty sure she said that she heard like a pop. So I thought, oh, like wonder if that's what it was, but it was just your waters. Yeah. Wow. So, like reflecting on like Soul's birth, you know, how has that helped, you know, overcome some stuff that came up for Reef? Or
yeah, absolutely, because I like, I don't know, it just made me feel like I could do it. Like, I felt broken after Reef, but having Soul was like, wow. And I think his size as well, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for him the tearing was more like he was a big baby, but when he came out, he actually kind of Supermaned his arm.
Yeah.
So I think that might have been another reason why I tore so bad like that. Yeah. But I ate way too much sugar with him. Like, I was eating, I don't think you guys have Whittaker's chocolate over there, I can't remember, but I was eating like a block of chocolate every night. And I know that is wrong, but
it is so tasty though. And you've got 3 other kids to look after. So like, you know, yeah, wow.
I wouldn't do that again though. I put on a lot of weight with him, and I think that I wasn't in the great, like health-wise, I probably wasn't in my best kind of thing. Like, I know now if we do have more babies, I definitely want to be fitter and eating like a really healthy diet during my pregnancy.
Yeah. Yeah. And thinking about future babies, would you choose to birth at home again?
Oh, absolutely. I always think like maybe if I hadn't called that midwife and maybe I wouldn't have torn if I didn't lift my leg up. Yeah. Or, because maybe if I'd listened to myself more, I might have stretched a bit more, or maybe I would have gone to hospital and been stitched correctly straight after, because I do know he said I would have had more success with stitching having the operation on the sphincter muscle if it was done straight away. Yeah. Whereas now it's sort of like 50-50 whether or not it'll work.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And would you think about having a free birth next time, or would you have midwives, or not too sure?
No, I think I would just free birth next time. Like, even after we had Soul, Dale was like, oh, we don't even need a midwife next time.
Yeah, that's
like
cool.
We had it was nice though, like having them there. They were really nice ladies, and they we all had a big cooked breakfast together after.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was nice. Yeah, like they were really nice to my kids as well, which was cool.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Sometimes you just need like that kind of, female energy community kind of vibe, I guess. That that makes you feel like they're there for you, but like they don't need to be, actively in your space. I find that, it's like hands off, and like you're being with women, but like you don't have to like physically be like 1 meter away from the woman whilst she's, doing her thing. Like just the fact that other women are present, like at least for me, that's what I wanted for my second home birth. I was like, nobody touch me. Don't talk to me. I don't want to hear you breathing. I just need you to sit on the couch. And that's exactly what they did. And that's what I wanted. So,
they've like that elder energy, because in their community they have really big families. Like the midwife I had, she only had 4, but her other midwife that was there, she had 12 kids.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're, I guess because they in their community it's all home births. Yeah. And they do see the other woman here, but they see like a lot of real natural kind of births, I'm guessing. I guess because they love birth stuff, they would tell me about they had twins at home and things like that, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. How incredible. Thank you so much for sharing all of your stories, Rachel. Do you have anything that you feel like we didn't talk about, or like that you'd like to say, or
No, one thing I kind of regret is I wish I had sort of started steaming sooner after having Sol, because I don't know, I guess just being busy with my other kids and stuff, I didn't really think about it, but now he's 1 and actually seeing it's quite scary how fast it's kind of helping.
Yeah, that's amazing. I actually don't know too much about it, but I did have Claudia, she's like, I think her Instagram is like the Muslim birth coach or something, and she has 6 kids, and she, teaches women about, I think she calls it, or it's called yoni steaming.
Yoni steaming,
yoni steaming. So that's where I've started to learn about it. But I'll make sure I put in a little link in this episode description for anyone that is interested in learning more about that too.
My friend sent me those, and she sent me actually a little herb healing spray as well for on there after.
Yeah, amazing. Cool. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thank you for having me.